Hallo, welkom bij een nieuwe aflevering van Drumpraat, seizoen 2 en inmiddels alweer aflevering 8. Wat betekent dat dit de laatste aflevering van dit seizoen is. Voordat ik mijn gast ga introduceren, wil ik graag een dankwoord uitspreken aan het Drumpraat team. Zonder deze mensen was het absoluut onmogelijk geweest om dit voor elkaar te krijgen. Jan-Peter van Popta voor het filmen, de video-editing. Patrick Kramer, verzorging van het licht. Bob Pille met Studio Hitfabryk voor de locatie en de audio-engineering. Super thanks boys, zonder jullie was het onmogelijk geweest. Nu terug naar mijn gast. Een iconische internationale naam. Hij is verantwoordelijk geweest voor een compleet nieuwe stroming en een nieuwe manier van benadering van hoe je moet drummen, überhaupt. Van jazz naar jazzrock, fusion, power drumming. Hij is bepalend geweest voor heel veel lokale drummers, voor nationale drummers, internationale drummers. Een enorme inspiratie geweest. Ik noem een Simon Phillips, Chris Colban, Dennis Chambers. Dat zijn allemaal drummers die van invloed zijn geweest op zijn manier van spelen. Deze gast verdient een groot applaus en het was een enorme eer om met hem te mogen praten. Zijn naam? Billy Cobham. Well, good day, sir. It's been a big pleasure for me to meet you, finally.
Are you in Amsterdam?
No, we live up north in a province called Friesland.
Is that near Groningen?
It's very near Groningen. You've been there in Groningen? You're familiar with that?
Quite a few times. Quite a few times, yeah.
Yeah. I remember because I did see my first concert of you in Groningen.
Oh, yeah.
And that was in the time that you recorded that album Warning.
Wow.
That's quite a time.
Yeah, it's almost 40 years ago.
It was unbelievable, impressive for me. And yeah, well, I'm very happy to talk to you now.
Well,
So, actually, I kind of grew up with you. You don't know that, but just to start, you were born in Panama, right? In 44.
Yes, I was.
And how did your development go there? Did you started playing in marching drums?
Not there, no.
Oh.
I moved from Panama when I was 3 years old.
Really?
To New York City with my parents, of course. And in that particular region, as I grew older, to around the age of about 6 or 7, I started to get involved in Boy Scouts and bands and things like that. Mm-hmm. But my father was a musician, my mom was a singer and all,
cool.
And a tailor. And so that was, music was around the house all the time.
Fantastic. So when did you really start playing drums?
When I was 3 years old.
3 years, immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a family that made and played drums, and so I did.
Fantastic. So I want to make a little jump to the 60s.
Okay.
And in the 60s, you started playing with Miles Davis, right?
No.
Oh.
1970, I started playing with Miles.
Oh, really? So how was it in that time, the period of the jazz and the playing around with and working with Miles? How was that for you?
School, education.
Really?
But again, the period of working with Miles was mostly in recording studio by then. And that was a kind of school of higher education.
Okay.
I did not go on concert tour with Miles Davis ever. I had an opportunity to record a concert with him in Japan, but that's 1983, 84, somewhere in there with the Gil Evans Orchestra. And that's the only time that I would have had the opportunity to play live with him. And that didn't even pan out that much. So there we go.
Okay. And also Horace Silver.
Well, that was easy. That's 68.
Wow. Yeah. Amazing. So, back in the days, you were playing a lot of jazz, right?
You can call it that if you like.
Yeah.
I was playing any kind of music I could.
How did you develop the style eventually? You made this big crossover from jazz to the iconic style you became famous with?
You need to understand that you're giving me your view of what I did, and I can't tell you that I made any changes. I just played the way I heard the music a certain way at that time, and I saw the direction for me that felt most comfortable. I didn't know I was doing any changeover. I still played in the recording studio, music from Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus to Friday Night Fights in this, where we made jingles and all of that. And I was just generally I would like to consider myself a reasonably good studio recording musician for making money for other people. So, I mean, my job was to sit down, read the music, interpret it the best way I could, and that was it. And so when I got the opportunity to work with some artists, like say Mclauchlin or Kenny Burrell or a jazz musician or James Brown, rock, I mean, it all ran together for me. It's music that I love to play, and I heard it on the radio. And so I was just sort of emulating what the environment that I was in. That was it.
But there was a certain moment where you kind of became famous.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, this is how we experienced it. That.
Well, you see, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
You're telling me something. I'm going, okay.
Yeah. So
that's all I can tell you.
Well, I mean, it takes a little bit of an introduction. You know, I have an uncle who was a pretty good player at the time. And when I was young, I was like 10, 11, 12 years old. He introduced me to your music.
Okay.
I don't know why, but it came to my path. And he was a total fan. He still is a total fan. But I heard something that I never heard before. And at the time, the people around here, they experienced the same vibe. So there is this drummer from the States with this unbelievable style of playing, you know, the power jazz rock vibe that we never heard before. It was a total different planet. But for you, it's like second nature, as you told me. But did you have any awareness of what you were creating actually in the world?
No. That's why I brought this up to you about being. Well, are you familiar? Well, in Holland, there are some musicians like that studied at Concertgebouw and all of that. They have, it's like a classical musicians. Only instead of a classical musician, I was kind of a hybrid between playing in the classical industry, which I did with the New York Philharmonic or the Boston Symphony. But I also did all this other stuff because it was my job. It was something that I learned to do when I went to performing arts high school. Yeah. To approach playing marches or approach playing Latin music, because that was my background from Tama. All of these things sort of fell into place for me as specialities that I did. It was not anything more than that in my mind at the time, because, you know, if I went to the studio, the most important thing about after playing the music or somewhere there was being on time, getting there. In, you know, if the recording session started at 10 o'clock, I played drums. So I couldn't get there like the piccolo player at 5 minutes to 10. I had to be there at 9:15. I had to set up my drums and organize everything for me so that the engineer could mic them, that kind of thing. So I had that kind of discipline, and that helped me to work a lot, because that was a very special thing for the business in community, that we got this jingle. It cost so many hundred thousands of bucks, and we got to start on time and we got to end on time. We got to save money. And what I brought was to come, read, listen, play what they felt was pretty much in line with what they were looking for. So I worked a lot on different things. That was it for me. And then people started to pick out that I could do this, that, or the other thing. So I worked more in certain areas and specialized in certain areas. But that came later. Yeah. It was nothing more than that for me.
No, really. Interesting. Is how people look at it, experience it. and how the player experiences it. And
but that was just me. That was a period that no longer exists. I mean, it exists, but it's really a small micro community now.
Yes.
It used to be what like New York and California, LA, Los Angeles. That's where those were the meccas. You know, that happened 24/7, 365 days a year. And you could make, I mean, if you like to do that kind of thing, which after a while, I know many musicians who passed away, died, making a lot of money doing that, but never having time for themselves because they were always under stress. They were like being nurses or doctors in a hospital.
Yeah.
High stress. We got to, we have to start on time. We have to finish it. And the next one comes on, and the next one, and the next one. Next thing you know, you have no time for yourself. Oh, you have all this money. You get married to somebody, big family, but you never see the family.
No.
Because you're working. So the family leaves you. And you end up still lonely.
That's
the other side of that kind of stuff.
You experienced that?
Oh, sure. That's all part of the job. You get that? Of course, I've been married more than thrice. Yes, of course. You know, you get married. I got a family, blah, 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 blah. I got a brand new car, I got a brand new house. And I'm never home to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So that's the other side of it.
I know. So, on a certain moment, you started to record your own stuff, your own music. And you started out with the album Spectrum, if I'm correct. That was a changer also. And compared to the story we just had, I mean, that made a difference, that album.
Okay.
This was, as we can see it now, as people still talk about, it's like an iconic album. It was new. We have never heard something like that before. How do you look at it?
I look at it as an act of desperation on my part to find something to do after I've been fired from a band that I thought I would be in for very many more years. Because the firing was not being released was a surprise. I was told that, yes, we were going to change some members of the band, but we need you to stay. And that was early in the same year that all of a sudden I get my pink slip. So let's say February or March, I'm told, yeah, man, this is going to happen. And right around October or so, no, we're not going to do this anymore. Goodbye. What do? I could roll over and die, or I could come up with something that might help me to buy my time, enough time to get back into the recording studio scene. Because once you leave the studio scene, it's very difficult to come back around again because you're a product of fashion. If you're in style, then everybody wants you, and if you leave, they find they fill a gap immediately. I mean, again, New York, LA, you're not going to be missed very long. There's a lot of people out there online behind me: Steve Gadd, Harvey Mason, blah blah. The line goes on. The names go on and on. Once I went on the road with the Mahavishnu Orchestra, who cared about Billy Cobham except for maybe a special situation, an assignment here or there where they needed odd meters played or blah, blah, blah. Okay, so then I come in. But aside from that, no. So I had to think, okay, what do I do now? How am I going to make this work? So I decided to make a record as a calling card. Just a record, just to get to my mom and dad and say, look, this is what I've done. This is what I'm listening to. And I wasn't thinking about writing any music on any long-term basis. It was like, I went to school. I had studied theory. I got past my test, blah, blah, blah. And then, now I need it. So what can I do? I use all my thumbs on the 10 thumbs on my fingers to make a part. It took a little while, but with some foundations in theory and all, I put together some very simple little things. Now, where that comes in to be very interesting and proves, again, drives home a point. It's about the masses, not the people who are in the minority generally control which direction the masses go and think, okay, commercially. All right, I needed to do something that was something that everyone could, that would be, everyone could enjoy, everyone could relax and take in, not play a million notes per bar because I played that in another band. I had to come up with something that everybody go, wow, that feels good. And then the next question is, who is that? Now, when it comes to who is that, and they say Billy Cobham, they go, Billy Cobham, what Billy Cobham? You mean the Billy Cobham that plays in the band with a million notes every bar? But there's not a million notes here, and I'm bobbing my head. Why am I doing that? Now, in an environment like New York or in Los Angeles or around the, where these are fast towns, people don't take a lot of time to think about things.
Yeah.
Try 18 seconds on the average of focus. And here I come. I drop this on the doom, da-dum, dum, ba-da-da-da-da, and everybody goes, wow, that's great. All the DJs go, wow, that's great. And it's who? And really? Now we got to play it again. And then, maybe we better play it again. Now the phone calls are coming in. Who is that? Now, it's all about making money. It's not about politics. And the entertainment business is based on both. Yeah. Okay, so you start to go, wow, this is very cool. And all I'm doing is talking to one person, the musician who made the music. All of a sudden, I've got a hit record, and no one knows how I did it. Why? Because they never took the time to figure it out. Yeah. And it's very, very simple. Yeah. I just gave the people what they wanted to hear. And also what they wanted to read, which was me playing a whole lot of stuff, being very complicated, knowing more than I should have, just gave them enough for them to enjoy. That's all they want to do. Great story. There you are. About a record. So then on a certain moment, you started to play with the Mahavishnu Orchestra with John Mclauchlin. That was after I made this record. Really? That was my recording spectrum came after being in that band. How was it for you to work in Mahavishnu with John? Again, school. The reason? Because I was able to observe all the goods and the bads that went along with making a band coming together and fusing to make a template that represented the group as a unit, not as five individuals. Not easily done. This is all highly, highly valuable information for any artist. I didn't go in there with the idea to take over the band and be better than anybody else. I just wanted to be the best I could be for me at the instrument that I played. So that meant that I had to contribute. The only way to know that is by playing and contributing all the time when we're playing. On stage, supporting, and also not just supporting, but contributing ideas so that the other players and the members of the band can draw from my idea if they're playing a frontline solo or just rhythm. Or if it's just not even just being there on time, being silent when it's necessary to be silent in order for a musical idea to come across, to give to invest my time in a very valuable way there. And you start to get that happening on a consistent basis, chances are you're going to work with a lot of people because that doesn't happen in the music industry. Most of the time, the music industry is all about competition. Yeah. And pitting one individual against the other. That's why bands from the 1970s onward pretty much did not stay together very long. Most of them. Yeah. The MO was only with that band only stayed together for 2.5 years at the most before there was a new music in Mahavishnu Orchestra and another one. All based around one individual. Whereas the very first one started out based around the individual who wrote amazing music. So much so that we wanted to contribute to that base and develop more and more that concept based on how he fueled it and seeded the whole musical soil in which we work from. But at some point in time, it had to stop. And he wanted to go in a different direction. And so he disbanded it and started something else. For me, I felt like I saw the way that all of this was happening, and it was a good time to observe and to understand that you don't need everything that you learn there. You just need some things that are basic that you can put together. And you also need to have timing on your side, understanding what functions well in that period to present your ideas. How can you sell yourself? What's your basic credo? And turns out to me to be, I need to present something with individuals in my band. I may lead it and I may be responsible on the marquee, but everybody has to be respectful of me and I have to be respectful of them. Yeah. If we can do that, we're going to play some very good music, and that's going to sell us.
Absolutely.
Not the not the newspaper ads, and not the marketing and who's better than whom and the gossip. No. It's what we really bring to the table. That's what everybody walks away from with. If we're good, people will remember that. Because they rarely get a band that is good.
Absolutely. So here's maybe a nice and interesting story for me to tell you. I mentioned my uncle, and I was 12 years old, and he showed me a record of you and George Duke, Billy Cobham, George Duke Band live, with on bass Alfonso Johnson and John Scofield on guitar. Man, I could not believe what I heard. I tried to play all the stuff you did, and it was a big inspiration. Years later, when I developed my career, I started working with an American guitar player called Richard Smith. Maybe you might know him. He's from Los Angeles.
No, don't know.
Well, Richard invited me to come over in LA to play there on a festival with Alfonso on bass.
Okay.
So this is an interesting circle. So I came up to meet him, and we had this amazing talk about that record and what it meant to me and how it inspired me. And as we stood together, we talked about it to reunite you guys. And he called George to talk about it, telling me that you were living in Switzerland and stuff. I don't know what the outcome was, but it was quite an interesting idea. How do you look back on that band, on that period?
That band to me, was another. It's like there was a period when certain bands came up and then disappeared really quickly. One was Jimi Hendrix, and then came the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and there were some other bands as well. I can't remember, but they came and they made an impact on culturally and on very rich presentations, and then poof, they were gone. Cobham Duke was only a 1-year wonder. The reason George Duke had his own career, the way things all worked out, it just was like dissipated like desiccated coconuts. It just went. Brrr. Why? Because it was like a stepping stone for some people more than others, And so we did this thing, we made this record. We did have outtakes to use, but by the time that opportunity came, George was already had maybe more than 3 or 4 hits as an artist. Plus he was producing many other artists, and he didn't find any room to take part in that. And for me, I wasn't pushing for it. What I did when I presented myself, I established myself as an artist on my own terms. So I was already working in Europe, and I had no need to come back to the United States to play with that band And so what I did was I teamed up with Alfonso, with Bobby and the Midnights, or Jazz is Dead in the coming years. And that was about as close as we came to ever doing anything together. Later, much later, at the turn of the millennium, we did have discussions about working together again. But by then, John Scofield was very, very, very strong in jazz, and he chose not to take part with us. Okay, and it was an idea. Timing wasn't so good. It's just everybody was doing certain, and they didn't see the value in trying to make that project happen again. Plus the material that we would have released as part of the outtakes of the original, by then were, in my opinion, as far as my performance was concerned, tremendously dated. A lot of things that I did with Cobham Duke after, and we're talking 1976, and then I'm seeing and hearing this stuff, say 2006, that's 40 years. And I'm going, man, I'm not that person anymore. I'm not going to play that. I don't feel comfortable with it. And George, again, at that time, or somewhere in that period, was trying to figure out a way for us. He wanted to do it. Why? Because he had nothing else. And that's not the reason why. I mean, he had nothing else. So now we're going to come off the shelf and we're going to do this. And for what? It didn't fit for me, especially since my production company was a company that produced that album, technically speaking, administratively, for Warner Brothers. So in the process, at the time, it didn't really knock me out, although George was an artist at Warner Brothers and I was not. You see, because they had, again, this is a music business. They had their connections with the company, and I couldn't even come close. And that's okay. It's something that I'm very, very happy that that's the way life has turned out for me. I'm okay. I'm okay, good. But I know that I could stand back and see it all and go, no. Now, 40 years later, it's like being asked to play the music of the Mahavishnu Orchestra again, but this time with orchestra, with a full orchestra. And I did do it, as a matter of fact, and produced a recording only for my own private listening pleasure, though, of us doing that. But I did, working as part of the WOMAD organization and being in Adelaide, I had a 100-piece orchestra play Meeting of the Spirits and things like this with me at the helm and a good writer and conductor. And it really got me going. But when I was asked to do it initially with the Frankfurt Radio Orchestra, I went, I don't think so. You know, I didn't want to do that music again until a colleague of mine said, what would happen if you did it now? How would you approach it? Then I realized, I said, you know, you don't often get an opportunity to go back and see what you would do with something like that again. Why not? And I really fell in love with it. I thought it was fantastic, but I knew it was also a kind of a cul-de-sac. Where was I going to sell it? To whom? It's not my music, so I'm going out of my way to record the music of John Mclauchlin, fundamentally only from an audience of one, me. Because I was curious, and it was well worth the investment because I'm also an educator. So I have some pretty exclusive stuff at home just for me to sit and think about. That's all. And that's good. I'm good with that.
So, if you look at a story that happened in 2008, you had a performance with Level 42, where Gary Husband was, at the time, he was the drummer. How did it end up?
Well, Gary Husband, I think, was ill. He had a problem with his back and he couldn't make the date. Oh. And he's a good friend of mine. And I thought, and they called me up. Mark King talked to Gary and they had agreed that I should come and play, if possible, if I was free. And I jumped at the chance because I love the music. I love that band. You know, they just had a groove that was really deep and strong, and it was going in the direction that I felt comfortable. So I did.
Perfect.
And the funny parts about it was with it I'm not sure if it was Harlem or someplace. We were playing in a big stadium or thereabouts, and the synchronization clock. They played to click on stage.
Yeah.
But the click started to vary.
Oh.
And that was the funniest. And the people in the audience are going, "Come on, you can do it." You know, we the tempos kept changing, and we did everything we could. We set the grooves, and it was electrical problem. And I always remember that, so much so that later on, maybe 2014, 2015, somewhere in there, I invited them to come back and play with me at Ronnie Scott's in London, the same performance. But this time we played it, you know, just grooving without any click. We had a ball, you know.
Did you check their new drummer?
No, I don't know who their drummers are now. No.
Oh. Amazing player. You need to check him if you can. But coming to drummers, we talked about your style of playing. You introduced for us a total new thing, and because of that, you kind of created a legacy, which you are. I don't know if you are knowing that, but players like Dennis Chambers or now Chris Coleman, they seem to be very inspired in what you established before then. And do you recognize it?
Not as that. I mean, if they take a little bit from me or whatever they take from me, once I play it, it's not mine anymore. Okay. You know, it's in the public domain.
Yeah.
And but it's kind of nice. I wish I had an opportunity to present a situation where I played. I had Dennis on. I have this podcast called Billy Cobham's Guide to Stress-Free Drumming. Mm-hmm. And what we talk about for 3 hours is how to play in a relaxed manner, how to approach performing your ideas through the drum set. And what works for me may not work for Dennis, may not work for Will Calhoun or Dom Famularo or Gary Husband when he's playing the drums. But those are my panelists this year. And finally, at the end, I had us all play one of my compositions, a piece called Cuba on the Horizon. Mm-hmm. And all 5 of us played it on Zoom. So that meant that I recorded first, dropped the track in, all of my band played on the tracks. And then I sent it to Gary. Gary played the drums in place of me, Will the same, Dennis the same, Don the same. And then I mixed them all, edited the video, so that everyone could see each of us in different places playing in combination with the other. Okay, so sometimes I had Dom, but all of us played together at some point until the very, very end when we all played together, the last 4 bars or something like that.
Amazing.
And it was fun.
Amazing.
So you can see how things, there's this, what did I say? It was like a saying a long time ago. Someone said, all roads lead to Rome, way back in the day. And in essence, the only thing that kept us together without us even knowing, because we had from May to August 15th to record individually, everybody, okay? And they did it on their own. But what they had to listen to that everyone had was a click track. The click track never changed.
No.
And so therein was the story. That was the line, that was, and everybody had to play to the click, but still play musically, not robotically. It was an interesting situation, because as Will said, he had to stop and think, I'm exposing myself to Billy, Dom, Gary, and Dennis. I'm not going to play bad. But the problem is this. Are you going to play musically?
Yeah.
Or are you going to play competitively?
Mm-hmm.
and is it about the music and how you phrase and how you hear things? Finally, after hours of trying to make this happen, he realized he just had to play what he felt and not try to play what he thought would get over to make an impression on everybody else. It was all about, he was already doing that.
Yeah.
And that's the key to playing musically at the drum set and not rhythmically at the drum set.
So Billy, you play Tama, right?
That's right.
As I do too. But what setup do you have now? What type of Tama drums do you use?
I use full bore Babinga.
You played Tama quite some years, eh? You started to play Mapex also.
I played Tama back in 1977 until 1986. And then I stopped with Tama, and I just didn't play for a while. I started to consider a company out of Canada called Tempest, and that didn't work. I was thinking about the fiberglass thing, and I was thinking about doing that. The drum sounded good, but the management and administration were the pits.
Okay.
And I couldn't get a handle on what these people were about, so that never happened. Then Mapex was brought to me by a guy named Gabe Ireland, and he became the president or something. But he was a really nice guy, and we started working on the development of a series of drum sets and different lines for the Shea family, I think it is, out of Taiwan. That lasted, again, that was, I guess, ballpark 88. I was there until about 98, and then that stopped again, and I started to work with Hagiwara at Yamaha for Yamaha, but it was more of a very almost, how can I put it? It wasn't official. I didn't need, at this point, I'm not looking for what Yamaha had for me that was very valuable was the fact that they had distribution. They could boast distribution worldwide, especially in places that I was working. And I was working in Eastern Russia a lot. I was getting to play Vladivostok and places like this, where the only drum set you could really find on a consistent basis outside of maybe Pearl, was Yamaha. Yeah. So I could ask if I had, the deal was, Hagi, I'm going to be in these places. If you think you can find somebody in these regions, like Ekaterinburg and places like this, I'd like to use the Yamaha set there because I knew what it was. And we had a good rapport. And all the way, I worked with Hagiwara until his retirement, ballpark around, I guess, 2005. And then I continued with Yamaha until 2014. At that point, Tama came back and said, we've got 44 years that we'd like to do this thing and wondered if you'd rejoin us. And I spoke with Yamaha and said, listen, we'd have nothing written. But, it was very easy. They have a plethora of artists. They didn't miss me. So I was gone. I went back to Tama with the idea that, I'd make a few sets for myself that I would use again, because I was in a position to do that around the world. They would just be placed at certain places. And so in Karlsruhe, I have my green set. In Swiss, I have a couple of sets. In Panama, I have a set, which is for Central America and South America. In the United States, I have two sets, one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast. And that's all I use. Okay. So you still live in Switzerland, right? Yes. How long have you been living there? Since 1981. Wow. So you're European now? I don't think so, no. If anything, I'm still trying to find out how to be one. But I don't think that I'll survive before I get that information. It's just very comfortable for me here. I have no problem. I'm a pretty quiet person. We don't look for a lot of exposure and partying. No, that's not it. For me, it's about studying and learning and having a small circle of friends, which I mean, really small. I don't think we have more than 10 friends in all of Europe. You know, there you go. That's it.
So, our viewers, I've asked my viewers if they came up with some interesting questions for you. And there were quite a few actually. And I selected the couple. And if it's okay for you, I'm going to ask you a few questions of the viewers.
Okay.
So Erik van der Veen, he wanted to know how the collaboration with Miles Davis came to town, and did you ever work with Roy Hargrove?
Yes, on both. Okay, first with Miles. Miles was introduced to me by Jack DeJohnette in 1969 on the night that Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon.
Wow.
Bizarrely enough. And we were in a club. I was working with, I think, Junior Mance or Mingus, or could have been Phil Woods. I don't know. It was one of those bands I was working with at the same all the time. And so I was upstairs, and downstairs in the main room at the Village Gate, Miles was working with Chick Corea, Wayne Shorter, Dave Holland, and Jack DeJohnette. Jack came up and said, "Billy, would you be interested in working with Miles? Because I told him that I'm not going to be able to work with him any longer." And I said, "No, twist my arm, man. We'll see." But I was just joking. I said, "Yeah, sure. Why not?" He said, "Okay, he's going to come up here and take a look. And if he likes, he'll give you a call." And a few days later, I got a call. And that's when I went in and started working with him. And that's how I met him. Okay, we had rehearsal and the usual stuff, and we just moved on. Roy Hargrove, the only time I really played with, well, it was two. That's not true. I worked with Roy in a representation, a salute to Freddie Hubbard in the turn of the century as well. But prior to that, I was working in the band with Johnny Griffin, and Roy Hargrove was a trumpet player. I forget, Reggie Johnson played bass. Hmm. I can't remember who the piano player was, but we did that. And I had a ball, you know, so it was wonderful. Roy was amazing. You know, he reminded me a lot of a young Lee Morgan, but more self-contained somehow. He had more ideas. He was not, in my opinion, full of himself. He was still really open to ideas and interests, and that was very beautiful to do. I mean, I'm sorry, he was to me, he's like Amy Winehouse or Hendrix. I mean, a very special personality who just was there, boop, and then gone, and left a major imprint, a giant imprint in the jazz world, for sure.
Wow. So I'm going to the next question. Is the question uttered by Dennis Timmer. He is asking, what do you think of Simon Phillips and how he was being affected by your style of playing?
I'm quite honored that Simon would choose to use me as a model for what he wants to do and has done. I'm honored. That's about it. It ends right there. Yeah. You know, he's good player. Nothing wrong. I mean, no wrong with that. And a lot of the people that he plays with makes him play better.
Cool. Nice. So this is an interesting one. It's this question is from a female bass player where I also play with. Amazing player. You should check her out for a project. Her name is Lydia van der Meer. And her question is about the bass players. What bass player would be the most challenging player that you ever worked with?
The first name that comes to mind when you say challenging, and then I say, no, it's not true. I don't have any bass players that are challenging. What I do find, I started to say Ron Carter, that's because Ron has a lot of ideas, but he maintains a solid foothold, a footprint on everything that's happening within the band. So he's always there And if you listen, not just listen, but absorb what he's doing, you will always be interested in what's happening from his station. And he will make you play. It will alter what you do as you play. He may, on a certain blues, which is just 3 chords, he may end up playing them in 4/4 time. He may play bum 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 bim bim bum bum bim bum, and he's playing in triplets again. And you have to decide if that is real, if what to do with that, and that's where the challenge is, because it is relative. I mean, theoretically, everything is correct, and the tempo's there. Once he thinks that you have all of that together, he'll drop something on you that makes you stop and go, okay, the test is on now. That's very interesting. It depends, because it's saying, it's challenging, is asking you, are you independent enough to stay the course in what you're doing and play musically there? Or will you follow me because you're not sure where you are? Mm. Or will you follow me because you hear that for sure? And there's 2 different ones there. Mm. If you're secure in what he's doing, you're going to play like you're secure in what he's doing. Whatever you play, but it's going to be in sync. It's going to be synchronous with it. If you're not, it's going to be asynchronous with it. And then there's going to be a war to try to sustain the level of intensity. Now we got a problem. And he's going to let you know, and it's going to come through the music. He'll just take you someplace else. But nobody's winning when that happens, you see? No. And that's, again, the end of the day. Everybody has to play together. So then you have your lesson. You have to stop and think about what all of that was and how did you fit into it or not, and what can you do the next time around if that situation should present itself.
Cool. I have another question for you.
Okay.
This question is from Cor Timmer, and he is asking, when you play a solo, do you have a lead from a melody or a theme that you use to build your solo upon?
It depends on if I have a band to play a melody with.
Okay.
I'm not using necessarily phrasing or musical ideas from the past to build anything. That's an idea. But what I'm thinking is envisioning the way I might envision the audience in front of me, if there is one, or if I think of something that happened earlier in my history within minutes or hours of the day, and I want to play and emulate that through the drums. How would I do it? But it's an automatic thing, so it doesn't necessarily always have to be AABA form or what in the music or one chord change. It can just be seeing someone drunk on the street and how they fall or how they walk or how they slip or how they bump into people. And all of that becomes music in my mind.
Okay.
In the way that I would translate that through the performance through my instrument. That's it.
So a Dutch journalist called Jacob Haagsma and a colleague of mine on the school that I work with called Cor Giesing, they are interested in the tracks Stratus and Heather because they were sampled and used in huge international hits from the band Massive Attack and Souls of Mischief. How do you look at that? What do you think of that?
I'm honored. It's wonderful that they would take my music and combine with their ideas, and that in essence ends up that we're both successful in terms of in a materialistic and commercial way.
Yeah, they were
nothing I would think of on my own, because that's not my life. That's not how I see music for me. But when I hear what they did with it, okay, I'm easily. I mean, it's easy for me to accept. No problem.
What was the first emotion or thought you had when you heard it for the first time at the time?
Wow, really? Those were the words. Wow, really? Far out. Okay. If that's what they hear, that's what they hear. They did a pretty good job.
Amazing. Huh? Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Talking about music, I have another question of a great Dutch drummer. His name is called Juan van Emmeloot. And he asked, can you share with us how you experienced any change of playing music throughout the years of your career, being a pro musician?
No, I can't. I don't know.
No?
Say that again. Say it again. It blew right by me. Yeah.
Can you share with us how you experienced any change of playing music throughout the years of your career in being a professional?
What I found is that the stream of information that I used to receive and play off of has become narrower, smaller. I'm not playing so much going from Latin to, I mean, playing with somebody in a Latin band and going to, and then running to play in the orchestra, a classical, Beethoven's Ninth or something like that in the same day. But at the same time, what I'm taking in reflects the general posture of society now. What we do, how we think, and how we present ourselves. It's always reflected in the notes that I play through the drum set, and that's a pretty ethereal way for me to say, because I mean, there's a lot going on, and I can just sample something in my mind and then play that, with the idea that's most important now is that if you play and specialize in percussion, playing at the drum set, you are multitasking on a very, very high level. Oh yeah. Your one hand is playing this, another hand is playing that. The feet are playing two different things, and you're already thinking ahead as to what comes next, the chicken or the egg. And it better be in sync, to keep your story going, or the whole, hill of beans will just fall right down. And it's very, 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 very sensitive. It's like a house of cards, man. You have to really be careful. Yep. But it's possible if you are focused and committed to what you're doing.
Yeah. How do you look at today's music scene and live scene? We are living in this very interesting time. We have a big pandemic, corona pandemic, that we have to maintain and that we have to find a way in. So it's building creativity, what's next, what to do. But how do you look at the world now? And especially also the music world with all the new Instagram drummers and different approach of the live scene. How do you see it?
I see everyone taking lessons to learn how to play better via Zoom, mostly, or via Skype. Mm-hmm. Everything is more remote. The information has to be clear and linear and as true as sincere and true as possible, because there's a question as to what is truth, and defining truth, for individuals now. Why? Thank you, Donald Trump, and a lot of other people like that. Mm-hmm. Where it's not because you said something. Now the line is, are you going to believe me or your lying eyes? So all people can have are ideas that are presented to them, and the act that represents those ideas being presented. And they still are reticent to actually say, wow, that is true. No, they're thinking, oh, this must be something out of Aladdin's magic lamp. Or, I saw this in the cartoon. All of a sudden, it's all not quite still clear. Even though they're seeing it, they don't believe that they're seeing. No. And that's what I see. And the only way you're going to drive home your point these days, especially that's why I have this podcast, is to actually have colleagues who sit down and do the same thing, but from their perspective.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden everybody goes, well, wait a minute. Gary did it, Dom did it, Dennis did it. Here's Will Calhoun with Living Color, and he's playing this rock approach to the thing that Billy wrote, which people are still saying, he wrote this music? He's a drummer. Drummers don't write music. And so you have all this happening. And people are going, yeah, he's probably got somebody behind the scenes. He's paying him a lot of money. And people will believe that because it's more convenient to them. Before they will believe even what they own, they see for themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to accept that until somebody says that's not true and can prove it to me. But I'm coming from the opposite direction. I'm saying I did it. When people say, give us, great line. Give us from a teacher who took the class last Sunday, said, I have a question. He didn't ask anything all 3 hours. He was kind of bored, kind of not. I knew this guy was a kind of teacher. And he said, can you tell the students what they can study and learn from this in the future, what they should practice in the future? This is a teacher's. I said, yeah, sure. And I then showed them, which is, if you can play 4 beats on the bass drum, 1, 2, 3, 4, and control it, and then play hi-hat 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I found many drummers can't even do that. No. Just to keep it going and sustain it. Now, here's the key. Now you have to play one rudiment called a paradiddle. Okay, while your feet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and hi-hat are going like that. And play the paradiddle, right, 3, 4, left, 2, 3, 4, right, 3, 4, right, 2, 3, 4, left, 2, 3, right, 2, 3, 4, left, 2, 3, 4, left, 2, 3, 4. Just starting there. The problem with that is that there's a lot of air in the middle. Mm-hmm. There's nothing to do. And most drummers want to play and fill every gap. So now they're having to think about which hand is coming up first, or right or left, and does the left play again or not? And all of a sudden, the weakness starts to come to the surface. Why most drummers aren't able to control their ability to be in sync with themselves. It's because one side of the brain is stronger than the other. The one that leads in one direction, that shows just how good they are, but only in one direction. Mm-hmm. Okay? They can't come back the other way because they can't play off the left hand if they're right-handed, or off the right hand if they're left-handed. So all of a sudden, we got to work on these things. And this is where it starts. And that's just the first station of that pattern. Mm-hmm. The next station, playing at 1, 2, 3, 4, left, 2, 3, 4, right, 3, 4, right, is now to play it in triplets. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. So it's like right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right. That's not easy. That's even more difficult because now you're thinking 3 against 4. Mm-hmm. Or 3 against 2, and you're having to figure out which da across, and then you have to now switch to right, left, right, right. Now everything is in sync, and then the next time around, it's right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right. Then the next one, and it goes on like this until you get to a point where you can't play much faster than that.
Absolutely.
Okay, but the whole idea is that it's all. If you do it right, it's all synchronized. And the key is that is not said, but is important for you to know, is that you only play as fast as you can. You don't try to, again, the idea is that you don't try to play the this series of patterns to show how fast you are. No. It's all about synchronizing everything. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's just 4/4. Now you then have 3/4, and then you have 5/4, and then you have 7/4. And boy, when you can get to those levels in 5s and 7s, now you're someplace where everybody, I mean, now we're talking about Indian drumming, multitasking, just on a clay pot, and the ideas that can come by playing these patterns, and you hear the combinations that are interwoven. You play that on a drum set with different tones, and all of a sudden you're in another world than most players, and that's where you want to go.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So what's in the pipeline? What's next? We have this Corona pandemic, but what are your plans for the coming time? To actually continue to build on the concept of working in this remote environment in a more effective way, teaching in schools. Right now, I'm in discussions with New York University, Steinhardt's Conservatory of Music in Greenwich Village, to give a couple of seminars, one week in the summer and 1 week in the winter of next year, early winter, talking about how to make all of this happen. But not only these drills, but how to play from the center of the drum set, branching out left and right. So that means you need to learn how to play right-handed as well as left-handed. Mm-hmm. All these things that most, again, people don't want to address because it's showing that no one wants to show their weak side. No, I mean, naturally, no, I don't want to do this. But the more you practice it, it doesn't become your weak side anymore. It's just teaching the body to play from one side and bringing equality to your mind, the brain. So it's, you're playing both sides of the body, man, both sides of the brain. Easier said than done for most. Most cats or players are only interested in making things happen yesterday. They don't want to put the time in. Yes, it does take time, but if you continually do it and you understand how you can incorporate these ideas into the musical performance, which is playing with everybody else, just throw something in. You have to be discriminative and say, well, I need to play this drum at this time. How do I get to it? So now we're talking about placement, not just playing on the drum, but how comfortable would you be? And that's why I changed all my drums toms around to get to what I need for sound to get a certain idea happening. This is what brings out the personality in an individual. That's where I'm going. For me, I like the idea of working from home or working in eventually having my studio or available to me. So I instead, like you said, I'd love to have played with you. Yeah.
I have nothing here. My studio is about a half an hour, 45 minutes away from here.
No, but you can, we discussed that later, but are you still working on new techniques and stuff and figures?
But it's not figures. It's for me, it's not all the figures are the same. You have 26 rudiments, of which I guarantee you play maybe 4 of them. Yeah. Because all of them are all hybrids of those 4. You have a double stroke roll, you have a single stroke roll, you have triplets, and then you have paradiddles. That's it, man. And out of that, you can create out of triplets, errata-McHughs, all these different things. Mm-hmm. But where are you going to put them on a drum set? In what situation in performance? So yes, you have those 4 patterns. It's where you accentuate inside the patterns. It depends on the music and what you're hearing. Mm-hmm. So that's more important to me than putting new figures together. It's about being able to control yourself at the kit and present your personality on a continual basis, being internally synchronous with yourself. If you can do that and work with everybody else at the same time, tones of the drums, how the music sounds relative to the music, with certain drums you play because they are the keynotes in a certain tune, all of a sudden people are going to take hold. They're going to take note of what's happening. You bring them into certain areas because you play a certain drum that on a pattern between your snare drum and the floor tom or whatever it might be. And all of a sudden we're into the next level. So it's about controlling and learning to control the, how can I put it? The intensity levels by certain things that I play, and when to play it, when to use a double bass drum pedal if I want to mute the bass drum with one beater to change the tone of the bass drum that I can't do with two bass drums. All these things come. That's what I work on.
Perfect. Fantastic. Wow. Quite a story. We've been talking for an hour. I'm very happy to meet you. I think we need to end it because otherwise it's too long. We could talk for hours. I'm pretty sure of that, which is amazing. But I really want to thank you for your time, Billy.
My pleasure.
It was a big honor meeting you, and I'm still a big fan. And I think you have been an inspiration for a lot of drummers around the world. And it's good to hear that from a stranger. And thanks for the interview. And I hope to meet and see you someday.
Oh, it would be great.
Yeah.
No problem there. Okay. So good luck with it, huh?
Thanks for your time. We are very honored, and thank you for everything. And have a good evening.
You too. All the best. Take care.
And a good Christmas.
Okay. You too.
Okay.
Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye.
Bye.